The foam back shrimp is a great imitation of Grafham's killer shrimp. The strip of foam for the back helps keep the fly fishing close to the surface, where the naturals are often seen swimming. Right, now the first step is to run the tying thread on just behind the eye, locking that loose end in place with a few turns of thread before trimming it off. Next, take the thread and carry it down the shank with close turns until it reaches a position approximately opposite the barb. The next step is to take a brown partridge feather and tear off a few fibres, then offer them up to the hook and catch them in at the bend to form a tail. Then take a spool of brown wire, copper wire can be used instead, cut off a length and then offer it up to the hook, catch it in place just where the tail was caught in, a couple of turns of thread, and then draw the loose end through. Saves having to trim it off, and then just secure it to the shank, bringing the thread back down to where the tail was caught in. To form the foam back, take a sheet of tan foam and cut a small sliver, offer it up to the hook by its tip, just catch it in, give it a slight stretch, bring the thread back down to the tail, and then lock that loose end in place. Now the body comprises a generous pinch of hare's fur. Now make sure in the blend that there's plenty of the stiffer guard hairs that can be teased out once the fur's been dubbed on. So once that's done, offer the fur up to the thread and begin to dub it on to create a nice thick rope. Once you're happy that the fur's been dubbed securely onto the thread, take it back to the base of the foam and begin to wind it in close turns along the shank. Keep winding the fur up the shank, making sure that there are no gaps. Keep going until it reaches just short of the eye. Doesn't matter if all these bits stick out, they'll help to create the effect of legs. Next, take a second small pinch of brown partridge hackle fibres and just catch them in at the eye so they project over the eye and represent the shrimp's feelers. Then dub on a very small pinch of the same hare's fur blend, apply that, and then draw the foam over the top and secure it in place with a couple of thread wraps at the eye. Take hold of the wire and begin to wind it over the foam back in evenly spaced turns. The aim is just to lock the foam in place and provide a little bit of segmentation. So once the wire has reached the end of the foam, just carefully undo those thread turns just to release the foam. Bring the wire up, lock it in place with a few thread wraps. Then either trim it off or by wiggling it back and forth. You might have to give it a little bit of time, but it will eventually fatigue and break off. So with that sorted, reattach that foam, 2 or 3 turns, then apply a couple of thread wraps directly at the back of the eye. So with the back and the rib in place, next step is just to cast off the thread with the normal whip finish. Just apply 3 or 4 turns and then trim off that loose end. To complete the back, take hold of the foam and just carefully trim it short just to leave a little stub over the front. Then, to produce those legs, take either a piece of Velcro or a tip of a needle and just gently pick out the fibres between the turns of ribbing, just to give the impression of those legs. You don't have to do too much, just to pick out some of those stiffer guard fibres. And that's pretty much it. The foam-backed killer shrimp.